The spaceship came out of the bright blue light with a soft hum. Captain Jake Morrison looked through the big window at the huge space station in front of them. It was made of some kind of crystal that sparkled like diamonds. The station was bigger than any city on Earth. Towers twisted up into space like giant trees made of light. "There it is," said Ambassador Lisa Grant, standing next to him. Her hands were shaking a little, but her voice was steady. "The Galactic Council Station, home to the 12 most powerful species in the galaxy." Jake had been a soldier for 20 years before he became a space captain. He had seen war and peace, victory and defeat, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Earth had spent 50 years trying to contact other life in space. When the aliens finally answered, they had been polite but cold. They told humans to come to this place if they wanted to join the galaxy's most important group. The human ship was small compared to the other vessels around the station. Jake could see ships that looked like living things, with skin that moved like water. Other ships were perfect geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly. Some ships seemed to be made of pure energy, glowing and shifting colors. "Our ship looks like a tin can next to these," muttered Dr. Alex Chong from his seat at the computer station. He was Earth's smartest man when it came to artificial intelligence. His computers had helped humans travel this far through space. But even he looked worried now. "It doesn't matter what our ship looks like," said Commander Sarah Blake. She was a tough woman who had fought in 3 wars before joining the space program. "What matters is what we say in there." The docking process was strange. The station seemed to reach out with invisible hands and pull their ship into a bay. Jake felt the artificial gravity change as they entered the alien structure. Everything here was built for beings much larger than humans. They walked through corridors that were 30 feet high. The walls showed moving pictures of space battles, peaceful planets, and creatures that looked like nothing from Earth. Air smelled like flowers and metal at the same time. Soft music played from somewhere, but it used sounds that human ears had never heard before. Other aliens walked past them in the corridors. Some floated instead of walking. Others seemed to slide along the walls like liquid. A few looked almost human, but their eyes were too large, or they had too many arms. Most of the aliens ignored the human visitors completely. "They're treating us like tourists," Sarah whispered to Jake. "Like we're children on a school trip." A council chamber was enormous. It was shaped like a bowl, with seats arranged in circles going down toward the center. Each section was designed for different types of aliens. Some seats were filled with water for creatures that breathed liquid. Others were open to space for beings that lived in vacuum. The center had a platform where speakers could address the council. 12 different species sat in the chamber. Jake had studied them all during the long trip here, but seeing them in person was different. The Zephyrians were tall and blue, with 4 arms and eyes that swirled like tiny galaxies. They controlled gravity like humans controlled electricity. The Krillians looked like giant insects crossed with dragons. They had hive minds that could think faster than any human computer. The Valdorians were the strangest of all. They existed in multiple dimensions at once, so their bodies kept changing between solid and energy states. Ambassador Grant walked to the center platform. She had practiced her speech 1,000 times. She spoke about Earth's achievements in space travel, about human art and science, about the diversity of human cultures. She explained how humans had gone from flying in simple airplanes to traveling between stars in less than 200 years. "We may be young compared to your species," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the huge chamber. "But we learn quickly. We adapt. We work together when we need to. We believe we can contribute something valuable to this council." The response was not what any human had expected. It started as a low rumble from the Krillian section. Then the Zephyrians joined in. Soon the entire chamber was filled with sound. It took Jake a moment to realize what he was hearing. Laughter. They were laughing at the human. Ambassador Council. Prime Zextel rose from his seat. He was the leader of the Zephyrians and the current head of the council. When he stood, gravity seemed to bend around him. His voice boomed through the chamber like thunder. "Your species has barely left its home star system," he said. "You fight wars over resources that any child could create with basic science. You cannot even achieve peace among your own kind. Yet you think you can contribute to the greatest alliance in the galaxy." The Krillian representative clicked its mandibles together. The sound was sharp and angry. "Humans have no special abilities, no advanced technology, no unique traits that would help the Council. You are just another young species that will either grow up or die out in the next few centuries." But it was the Valdorian speaker who said the words that cut deepest. Their form flickered between dimensions as they spoke. Their voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We have watched your species for 200 of your years. You show some promise in creativity and ability to adapt. But these traits are common among young races. What is not common is your tendency to destroy yourselves. We calculate that there is a 73.6% chance that humanity will make itself extinct within the next 500 years. The laughter grew louder. Other species that Jake had never heard of joined in. The sound echoed off the crystal walls and seemed to go on forever. Some aliens were pointing at the humans. Others were making gestures that were clearly insults. In their cultures, Ambassador Grant stood perfectly still on the platform. Her face showed no emotion, but Jake could see her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Dr. Chun was staring at his tablet, recording everything. Sarah Blake looked like she was calculating how much damage she could do before the station's security stopped her. "Perhaps," Ambassador Grant said when the laughter finally died down, "you underestimate what humanity can accomplish when we are properly motivated." This brought another wave of laughter, even louder than before. Council Prime Zexthol waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "Young species always believe they are special, always believe they will be the exception to the rules that govern the galaxy. We have seen thousands of races make the same claims. Most are gone now. The few that survived learned to accept their place in the natural order. Your place," said the Krillian representative, "is among the primitive species that may eventually earn the right to trade with council members. Come back in 1,000 years. If your species still exists, we will consider your request again." The Valdorian flickered more rapidly, showing excitement. "Though our calculations suggest this is highly unlikely. Primitive species rarely survive their own technological adolescence." The meeting was over. The humans were escorted back to their ship by guards who looked bored and annoyed. As they walked through the corridors, Jake could hear the laughter still echoing from the council chamber. Back on their ship, the human delegation sat in silence. They had traveled further from Earth than any human before them. They had prepared for months. They had brought their best arguments, their finest achievements, their most compelling reasons for acceptance, and they had been laughed at like children trying to sit at the adult table. But as Jake looked at the faces of his companions, he saw something that worried him. It wasn't defeat or sadness. It was something much more dangerous. It was anger. Cold, calculating, determined anger. The kind of anger that started revolutions. The trip back to Earth was the longest 3 months of Jake Morrison's life. The human ship moved through space in complete silence. Nobody talked about what had happened at the council station. Nobody talked about the laughter or the insults or the dismissal. They just sat and thought and planned. Ambassador Lisa Grant spent her time writing reports that would never capture the real truth. How could words on paper explain the feeling of being treated like insects by beings who saw themselves as gods? How could she describe the sound of an entire galaxy laughing at humanity's hopes? Dr. Alex Chun worked at his computers day and night. He analyzed every second of their meeting with the Council. He studied the alien technology they had seen. He recorded the power readings from their ships and the energy signatures from their weapons. His artificial intelligence programs ran calculations that would have taken human mathematicians years to complete. Commander Sarah Blake cleaned her weapons and ran combat simulations. She had been a soldier long enough to know that diplomacy sometimes failed. When words stopped working, other options became necessary. She studied the layout of the Council station and memorized the positions of their defense systems. On the 4th day of the journey, Sarah finally broke the silence. "Well, that was educational," she said during their evening meal. Lisa looked up from her cold food. Her diplomatic training had not prepared her for this level of personal humiliation. Educational? We were treated like children. Worse than children. We were treated like pets performing tricks. Exactly, Sarah replied. Her scarred hands moved over her tablet as she spoke. We learned what they think of us. More importantly, we learned what they don't expect from us. Jake leaned forward in his chair. What do you mean? Sarah smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. They expect us to go home with our tails between our legs. They expect us to accept their judgment and spend the next 1,000 years trying to prove we're worthy of their attention. They expect us to follow the same path as every other species they've encountered. Dr. Chun looked up from his computers. The Valdorians mentioned our creativity and adaptability. They called these traits common among young races. But I noticed something interesting in their biological readings during the meeting. What kind of something? Jake asked. Fear, Chun said quietly. Not fear of us specifically. Fear of the unknown. These species have existed for thousands of years. They've seen countless races rise and fall, following predictable patterns. They have rules and systems for everything. But humans don't follow their rules. We don't fit their patterns. We're chaos in a galaxy that values order. The conversation continued through the night. By morning, the human delegation had reached a conclusion that would change the course of history. If the Galactic Council wanted to treat humanity like primitive children, then humanity would show them what children could accomplish when pushed too far. The ship's communication system came alive as they entered Earth's solar system. Messages flooded in from every government on the planet. The news of humanity's rejection by the Council had reached Earth before them. The reaction was unlike anything in human history. President Karen Williams was waiting at the landing site when they arrived. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with controlled anger. Tell me everything, she said. The debriefing took 12 hours. Every word spoken at the Council station was analyzed. Every gesture made by the alien representatives was studied. Every laugh and insult was documented and recorded. When it was over, President Williams stood up slowly. They made a mistake, she said. They thought humiliating us would make us back down. They don't understand humans very well. Within 24 hours, every major leader on Earth had been contacted. Prime Minister David Clark of Britain was the first to respond. Whatever you need, he said. Whatever it takes. General Liu Wei of China, despite decades of rivalry with the West, offered his country's complete support. This is not about politics, he said. This is about species survival and dignity. Even the smallest nations opened their borders and offered their resources. Countries that had been enemies for generations suddenly found common ground. The alien laughter had done something that no human leader had ever accomplished. It had united the entire planet under a single cause. The project began immediately. It was simple in concept, but revolutionary in execution. If the Galactic Council saw humanity as primitive, then humanity would show them what primitives could do when properly motivated. Dr. Emma Rodriguez, Earth's leading scientist in theoretical physics was given unlimited funding to develop new propulsion systems. Her team included the brightest minds from every nation. They had one goal: create ships that could travel faster and farther than anything the Council possessed. Colonel Ryan Martinez, a tactical genius who had never lost a battle, was tasked with developing new weapons and defense systems. His team studied every piece of alien technology they had observed. They looked for weaknesses and found dozens. Dr. Chan worked around the clock to improve his artificial intelligence systems. The Krillians had hive minds that could process information faster than any human computer. Chan's goal was to create something better. Not a hive mind, but a network of individual intelligences that could work together while maintaining their independence. Underground facilities were built on every continent. The largest was hidden beneath the Mojave Desert in America. It stretched for hundreds of miles and contained the most advanced laboratories Earth had ever seen. Scientists from around the world worked side by side, sharing knowledge that had been kept secret for generations. The project in the Atlantic Ocean was even more ambitious. Massive underwater cities were constructed to house the development of living ships. These vessels would not be built like traditional machines. They would be grown like living things, able to repair themselves and adapt to new situations. Admiral Morrison, promoted from his previous rank, oversaw the training of humanity's new space fleet. The candidates came from every military on Earth. They were selected not just for their skills, but for their ability to think creatively under pressure. Each crew member had to prove they could find solutions where none seemed to exist. The work was exhausting. Scientists worked 18-hour days. Engineers pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible. Military personnel trained in conditions that would have been considered impossible just years before, but the motivation never wavered. Every time someone felt like giving up, they remembered the sound of alien laughter echoing through the council chamber. They remembered the dismissive gestures and the calculated insults. They remembered being told that humanity would probably destroy itself within 500 years. The breakthrough came in the second year. Dr. Rodriguez's team successfully tested a new type of engine that could bend space and time. The test was conducted in complete secrecy, but the results were beyond their wildest dreams. A small probe disappeared from Earth's solar system and reappeared near the nearest star in less than 6 hours. The living ships began to take shape in their underwater factories. Each one was unique, with organic curves that seemed to flow like water. They could heal from damage that would destroy normal ships. They could adapt their capabilities based on what they encountered. Most importantly, they were completely unpredictable. Dr. Chun's artificial intelligence network exceeded all expectations. The individual AI units could think independently or join together in group consciousness as needed. They could switch between modes instantly, giving them advantages that no hive mind could match. As the third year ended, Earth had changed completely. The planet was united in a way it had never been before. Every resource was directed toward a single goal. Every human on Earth understood that their species was working toward something unprecedented. The aliens had dismissed humanity as primitive children who would probably destroy themselves. They were about to learn that there was nothing more dangerous than underestimating what humans could accomplish when someone told them they couldn't do something. The galaxy was about to discover why making humans angry was a very bad idea. 5 years had passed since the humiliation at the Galactic Council. Earth was no longer the same planet that had sent a small delegation to ask for membership in the galaxy's most powerful alliance. The world had transformed into something that would have been unrecognizable to anyone from the past. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center deep beneath the Mojave Desert. Around him, hundreds of screens showed the progress of humanity's greatest project. Ships were being born in the underwater cities. New weapons were being tested in secret facilities on the moon. Artificial intelligence. Networks were growing smarter every day. The underground complex stretched for over 300 miles in every direction. It was the largest construction project in human history. Workers from every nation labored side by side in tunnels that had been carved through solid rock. The facility had its own power plants, its own water systems, and its own manufacturing centers. Dr. Emma Rodriguez walked up to Jake, her white coat stained with chemicals from her latest experiments. She looked tired but excited. "We did it," she said quietly. "The final test was successful. We can now travel from Earth to the edge of the galaxy in less than 2 weeks." Jake nodded slowly. The breakthrough had taken 4 years of constant work. Rodriguez's team had discovered how to fold space itself, creating shortcuts through the universe that bypassed the normal rules of physics. The technology was completely different from anything the Galactic Council used. How different? Jake asked. Their ships travel through hyperspace, which is faster than light, but still limited by distance, Rodriguez explained. Our ships step outside normal space entirely. We exist in a pocket dimension for the duration of the journey, then step back into normal space at our destination. Travel time is based on energy input, not distance. In the Atlantic Ocean facilities, Admiral Sarah Blake watched as the 50th living ship was completing its growth cycle. The creature was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It looked like a cross between a whale and a spaceship, with smooth organic curves and surfaces that seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat. "How are they different from normal ships?" asked Captain Jenny Adams, one of the new officers selected. For the fleet. Sarah smiled as she watched the ship's skin shift from silver to deep blue. Normal ships are built. These are grown. They have their own intelligence, their own healing systems, their own adaptive capabilities. If you damage normal ship, you have to repair it. If you damage one of these, it repairs itself and learns how to avoid that type of damage in the future. The living ships were connected to Dr. Chun's artificial intelligence network, but they maintained their own personalities. Each ship was unique, with its own preferences and quirks. Some preferred to fly in graceful curves, others in sharp geometric patterns. Some were aggressive by nature, others were more cautious. Dr. Chun himself was working in a laboratory that existed in 17 different locations at once, connected by quantum communication links that allowed instant data transfer across any distance. His artificial intelligence network had grown beyond his original plans. "The Krillians have hive minds," he explained to a group of military officers. "Every individual thinks the same thoughts and shares the same knowledge. It makes them very efficient, but also predictable. Our AI network is different. Each unit thinks independently, but can choose to share thoughts with others instantly. They can work alone or together as needed." The network consisted of thousands of individual AI units, each one as smart as the best human scientists. But unlike the Krillian hive mind, they could disagree with each other, argue, and come up with completely different solutions to the same problem. This chaos made them unpredictable and creative in ways that no hive mind could match. Colonel Ryan Martinez had spent 5 years studying every weakness in Galactic Council technology. His team had identified dozens of flaws that the aliens had never considered. The Council species had spent thousands of years perfecting their weapons and defenses, but perfection had made them predictable. They build everything to last for millennia, Martinez explained to his officers. Their ships are incredibly durable and powerful, but they never change. Our ships are designed to evolve constantly. Every battle teaches them something new. Every encounter makes them stronger. The human weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of single powerful guns, The living ships carried swarms of smaller weapons that could work together or independently. The weapons could change their function in the middle of a battle, switching from energy beams to projectiles to electronic warfare as needed. But the most important development was not technological. It was human. The crews selected for the new fleet were unlike anything Earth had ever produced. They came from every nation, every culture, every background. But they all shared one thing: the absolute determination to prove that humanity deserved respect. Captain Mike Johnson had been a test pilot before joining the space program. He had volunteered for the most dangerous missions and survived crashes that should have killed him. "Why do you keep pushing the limits?" Admiral Morrison had asked him during his interview. "Because limits are meant to be broken," Johnson had replied. "Every time someone tells me something is impossible, I take it as a personal challenge." Lieutenant Sarah Parker was a former Special Forces soldier who had served in 3 different countries' militaries. She spoke 7 languages and had survived behind enemy lines for months at a time. "What motivates you?" Admiral Blake had asked her. "The look in people's eyes when they underestimate what I can do," Parker had answered. "I live for the moment when they realize they were wrong." The crews trained in conditions that pushed human endurance to its absolute limits. They practiced flying the living ships through asteroid fields, fought simulated battles against overwhelming odds, and learned to work with AI partners that could think faster than any human. But the training was not just about fighting. The crews learned alien languages, studied galactic history, and practiced diplomatic protocols. Humanity's return to the Galactic Council would not be as conquerors, but as equals who had earned their place through achievement. As the 5th year drew to a close, Earth possessed 50 living ships, each more advanced than anything the Galactic Council had in their fleets. The crews were ready. The technology was proven. The artificial intelligence network was operating at full capacity. Admiral Morrison stood in the command center, looking at the final reports. Every department had exceeded their goals. Every system had been tested and proven. Every crew member had passed their final evaluations. President Williams joined him in the command center. She had aged considerably during the 5 years of the project, but her eyes still burned with the same determination that had started everything. "Are we ready?" she asked. Morrison nodded. "We're more than ready. We're about to remind the galaxy why underestimating humanity is the biggest mistake anyone can make." The time had come to return to the Galactic Council. But this time, humanity would not be asking for permission to join. They would be announcing their arrival as the galaxy's newest major power. The Galactic Council's monthly meeting was proceeding exactly as it had for the past 3,000 years. The 12 species discussed trade agreements, territorial disputes, and the usual business of running a galactic civilization. Council. Prime Zexthol was reviewing reports from the Outer Rim when every alarm in the station began screaming at once. "What is happening?" demanded the Krillian representative, its compound eyes focusing on multiple data streams simultaneously. The Valdorian speaker flickered rapidly between dimensions, its form becoming more unstable as stress affected its ability to maintain physical coherence. Unknown contacts. 50 vessels. They appeared without warning at the edge of our sensor range. Zexthel's forearms moved in agitation as he studied the readings. The numbers made no sense. How did they bypass our early warning? Systems? Our sensors should have detected them days ago when they entered the system. Unknown energy signatures, reported the station's AI. Unknown propulsion methods. Unknown vessel configurations. These ships do not match any known technology in our databases. In the command center of the flagship Vindication, Admiral Jake Morrison watched the Council's frantic communications with quiet satisfaction. The living ship around him pulsed gently, its organic walls warm to the touch. He could feel the ship's excitement through their neural link. After 5 years of preparation, it was finally time. Admiral Sarah Blake stood beside him, her hands resting on the tactical display. The 50 human ships had arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the Council station. Each ship was different, their organic hulls shifting colors and patterns as they communicated with each other through methods the Council had never seen before. "They're scared," Blake observed, watching the alien communications. "Good. Fear means respect." Dr. Chun's artificial intelligence network had integrated seamlessly with the living ships. The combined intelligence of thousands of AI units and 50 organic vessels created a processing power that far exceeded anything the Council possessed. Within seconds of arriving, they had mapped every system in the station and identified every weakness in its defenses. The communication came through traditional channels, but the voice that emerged was unlike anything the Council had heard before. It was Admiral Morrison's voice, but it carried the harmonic resonance of 50 living ships and thousands of artificial minds speaking in perfect unison. "Greetings, Galactic Council. This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the Terran Fleet. We have returned to continue our previous conversation." The Council chamber erupted in confusion. Species that had remained calm for millennia were suddenly agitated and frightened. The Zephyrians were using their gravity manipulation to scan the human ships, but the readings they got back made no sense. The ships seemed to be alive, their energy patterns flowing and changing like living creatures. "Impossible," the Valdorian representative flickered more rapidly. "Humans do not possess such technology. Our calculations indicated they would require at least 500 years to develop anything approaching our level of advancement." Morrison's voice cut through the chamber like a blade, carried by the station's own communication systems. "Your calculations failed to account for the one thing that makes humanity unique in this galaxy: our ability to accomplish the impossible when someone tells us we cannot." The demonstration began quietly. Each human ship started to change, their organic HULLs flowing like liquid metal to reveal weapon systems that defied every known law of physics. Energy began to build along their surfaces, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. But the real shock came when the ships began to interface directly with the Council's supposedly impenetrable computer networks. The combination of human creativity, artificial intelligence, and organic ship consciousness had created something entirely new. Within moments, they had cracked security systems that had protected the Council for thousands of years. "Your species are ancient and wise." Admiral Blake's voice joined Morrison's, her words carrying the authority of someone who had never backed down from any fight. "But age and wisdom can become weakness when they lead to arrogance and overconfidence." The human fleet had accessed everything: military databases, economic records, strategic plans, personal communications, secret treaties. They knew the location of every Council world, every military base, every resource depot. They had mapped the entire Council civilization in less than 10 minutes. More terrifying than the invasion of their networks was what the humans did with the information. They began to point out flaws and weaknesses that the Council had never noticed. Defense systems that could be bypassed with simple modifications. Economic policies that were slowly destroying entire sectors. Political agreements that were creating instability across multiple star systems. "We have no desire for conquest," Morrison continued, his voice now coming from every speaker in the station. "We seek only what we originally requested 5 years ago: recognition as equals and membership in the Galactic Council." The silence that followed was complete. The most powerful alliance in the galaxy had been outmaneuvered by the species they had dismissed as primitive children. Every secret had been revealed. Every weakness had been exposed. Every defense had been penetrated. It was Dr. Chun who delivered the final message. his artificial intelligence network speaking through every screen and display in the chamber. You calculated that humanity had a 73.6% probability of making itself extinct within 500 years. We have run our own calculations using methods you cannot comprehend. The probability that the Galactic Council will survive the next century without human assistance is 12.3%. The data that followed was comprehensive and terrifying. The humans had identified 17 separate threats to galactic civilization that the Council had either ignored or failed to detect. Ancient machine intelligences awakening in the dark spaces between galaxies. Dimensional parasites beginning to break through the barriers between realities. Resource depletion that would trigger wars within decades. Energy patterns that suggested the universe itself was beginning to change in ways that could destroy all life. But for every threat identified, the human fleet offered solutions. Technologies that combined Council wisdom with human innovation. Strategies that turned unpredictability into strength. Methods that used chaos as a tool rather than trying to eliminate it. The Krillian representative was the first to speak. How? Did you identify these threats? Our hive mind processes information faster than any individual intelligence. Your hive mind thinks the same thoughts in unison, Sean's network replied. Our network thinks thousands of different thoughts simultaneously. We see patterns you miss because we approach problems from directions you never consider. Council Prime Zexthal studied the tactical display showing the human ships. They had not moved from their positions, but their very presence changed everything. What do you want from us? The same thing we wanted 5 years ago, Morrison replied. Membership in the Council. Recognition as equals. The right to contribute to galactic civilization. And if we refuse again? The human ships pulsed in unison, their organic hulls shifting to display new weapon configurations. Then you will face the threats we have identified alone. And according to our calculations, you will not survive them. The vote was held within the hour. For the first time in Council history, it was unanimous. Humanity was granted full membership with all the rights and responsibilities that entailed as the ceremony concluded. Admiral Morrison reflected on the journey that had brought them here. 5 years ago, humanity had been laughed at and dismissed. Today, they sat as equals among the galaxy's most powerful species. The Council had been right about one thing. Humans were chaos given form. But they had failed to understand that sometimes chaos was exactly what an ordered universe needed to survive. The galaxy would never be the same. And neither would humanity.